Started in 1928 in an isolated Massachusetts town of Ensmith. You haven't heard of the raid? Of course you haven't. Maybe Operation Puzzlebox rings a bell. No? It was only an operation involving the U.S. Navy, a battalion of Marines, the Treasury Department, and the Bureau of Investigation to clear the town of seditious aliens. Over 200 people were taken prisoner without trial and put into concentration camps. They say it was a prohibition raid. Sure. That's the thing. Ever since its inception, it has been a secret. Can you imagine what the world would be like if people knew that the boogeyman was real? That aliens are real? And strange beings beyond human comprehension exist and pose a threat to all of us? They called it P4, Parapsychology, Paranormal, and Psychic Phenomenon, established by the Office of Naval Intelligence to investigate threats similar to what was found in Ensmith. Originally set up to study inexplicable phenomenon that would impact World War I, it would later consist of veterans from the incident at Ensmith. It would grow to have a detachment of Marines as well as Treasury agents. P4's new mission: to scour the world for inhuman beings like those found in Ensmith. But it was not the only organization of its kind. The British, around World War II, would create MI-13, codename Pisces, which stood for Paranormal Intelligence Sector for Counterintelligence, Espionage, and Sabotage. So much for short titles. The Russians would also have their own encounters with the strange, which would lead to the formation of GRU SV8. I won't try to pronounce the Russian title for the Bureau. Just, we refer to it as the Chief Intelligence Directorate of the General Staff, Special Department 8. FDR was worried about American intelligence, rather lack thereof, and requested William Donovan come up with a plan to fix that. Modeling this idea after the British MI6, Donovan came up with what would become the Office of Strategic Services. In 1942, Lieutenant Commander Martin Cook of P4 went to inform Colonel William Donovan, head of the OSS at the time, about the Nazis' intense interest in the occult. Donovan was so impressed with Cook and his unit that he immediately moved to have P4 incorporated into the OSS. P4 was given a new security clearance, Delta Green. Eventually, P4 would simply be referred to as Delta Green. Hi everyone. In this video I talk about the tabletop RPG Delta Green by Arc Dream Publishing. One directive of this brief is to obtain likes and or subscribes, so please do so if you think this would help your operatives or handler. On with the video. While the raid on Ensmith took place in the past, Delta Green was released in 1997 under Pagan Publishing as a supplement to the popular RPG Call of Cthulhu. In late September of 2015, a crowdfunding campaign was initiated for 2 core books, The Agent's Handbook and The Handler's Guide. PDFs for both would be released in 2016 and 2017, respectively, with Delta Green finally becoming a standalone tabletop RPG.
And the gold Emmy for Best Production Values goes to Delta Green, the role-playing game from Arc Dream Publishing.
And the gold Emmy for Best Rules goes to Delta Green, the RPG.
2018, Delta Green would go on to win 6 Emmy Awards, to include gold for Best Rules, Best Production Values, and then silver for Product of the Year and Best Game. If both Delta Green and Call of Cthulhu RPGs are based off the subject of cosmic horror from H.P. Lovecraft, it's important to know that Delta Green is not just another version of Call of Cthulhu. COC is typically set in 1920s. It's more about exploration, investigation, and encountering the unknown. It focuses on academics, detectives, and antiquarians who stumble upon eldritch horrors while investigating strange occurrences. Delta Green, on the other hand, is primarily set in the modern day and is a mix of a government conspiracy and Lovecraftian horror. Players are members of a secret government agency or rogue faction tasked with combating unnatural threats while keeping their activities hidden from the public and the government itself. The tone in Delta Green is more paranoid and dark, reflecting a world where not only the mythos is a threat, but also the clandestine operations and moral compromises of the agents themselves. In Call of Cthulhu, The tone is often one of slow-building dread, with a focus on the horror of the unknown and the gradual revelation of cosmic truth that drive characters to madness. In Delta Green, the tone is darker, more cynical, and more immediate. It emphasizes the psychological toll of confronting the mythos while dealing with government secrecy, cover-ups, and the potential for betrayal. The horrors are not just cosmic, but also moral and personal. In Call of Cthulhu, characters are often ordinary people, professors, journalists, private investigators, who have no idea what they're getting into. They are often reactive, uncovering the mythos through their investigations, while in Delta Green, characters are trained professionals, often government agents, soldiers, or scientists. They know something about the unnatural and are proactively trying to stop it, though at great personal risk. They often have to balance their mission with maintaining their cover and personal lives. Call of Cthulhu uses the basic role-playing system, or BRP, which emphasizes skill checks, sanity loss, and a gradual descent into madness as characters encounter the unknown. Delta Green, while it shares many similarities with the BRP system, Delta Green has its own mechanics such as bonds, which represent the relationships that keep characters grounded but can be damaged as the character's sanity deteriorates. It also has mechanics for handling missions, cover-ups, and the logistical side of being part of a clandestine organization. The game published by Chaosium focuses on the individual and small group experiences, with a strong emphasis on the mystery and investigation of specific scenarios or campaigns. The game from Arc Dream Publishing focuses on the broader implications of fighting the mythos as part of a covert war. It explores themes of duty, secrecy, and the personal costs of fighting horrors beyond human comprehension. Call of Cthulhu, while characters might face difficult choices, the game doesn't always dwell on the moral consequences of actions. Delta Green, on the other hand, often forces players to make morally ambiguous decisions, balancing the need to protect the world from the mythos with the human cost of doing so. The question of how far are you willing to go is central to the experience. To sum it up, while both games explore similar themes of cosmic horror, Call of Cthulhu is more about discovering and surviving the mythos, while Delta Green is about fighting it from within a shadowy, morally complex framework with a modern conspiratorial twist. Delta Green can be considered a more traditional role-playing game. What I mean by that is that it's a game made up of multiple players and a single game master. The GM in the game is known as the Handler. In the world of espionage, a handler is an intelligence officer or case officer who manages agents or sources. The tome that helps the game master better understand the world of Delta Green is called The Handler's Guide. Like many GM-driven RPGs, the handler has a few roles. One is to set the tone. It's a game of mystery, investigation, suspense, discovery, horror, fear, and the impact it all has on the human element. The handler is to adjudicate the rules, present the physical world of Delta Green, an alternate modern-day world not entirely different than our own. And then lastly, they're to control the NPCs. Much of this is facilitated through a mission-based format and operation, or simply an op. What the handler needs, aside from a set of dice, is the agent's handbook. It contains all the rules for the game. A quick version can be found in Need to Know, which I'll have links down below so you can reference some of these awesome products. The Handler's Guide outlines the long, detailed timeline events of Delta Green World as well as the different factions, so that's a book you might want to pick up as well. While it's a core book, I would not consider it rules or mechanics heavy as it's mostly background information, but it is fantastic and will help you as the handler submerge the agents into the deep end of the world that is Delta Green. Now, does the handler need to know all 357 pages of content outlined in the Handler's Guide? Of course not, but it can most certainly help you immerse your player agents into different eras and world setting. Lastly, a scenario or two. Last Things Last is a scenario packaged within the free starter rulebook. It's easily a must-have resource in your Delta Green library. And while you can certainly come up with your own missions for your agents, The Delta Green scenarios can help you cover many of the bases of a one-shot, a mini-arc, or a campaign as they cover the nuances of the mission brief, the intrigue behind the mission, clues, NPCs, all without you having to do it yourself. If you want to do it your own homebrew, go right ahead. There's no gaming police, but at least look over a mission to have a better perspective on what it all involves. The players in the game take on the roles of agents. Some games can facilitate large numbers of participants, but Delta Green is not entirely about party composition. Sure, it helps to have a diverse group that provides a vast set of skills, but think of real life. How many TV shows or movies do you watch where 4 to 6 law enforcement officials question a single witness or suspect? I personally find 3 to 4 players ideal, but I have run Delta Green missions with as many as 6. It gives everyone enough spotlight while not sacrificing progress, because in Delta Green, it can be beneficial to actually split the party. Your character, or agent, is probably in the service of a governmental agency. They like those who serve in the public sector. Some say it's because of duty, might be because of the access you have. It's likely your area of expertise is of value to the program. It is definitely because you keep your mouth shut and understand the threats that cosmic horror poses to all of humanity. At some point, your agent is summoned by the organization. This summoning is referred to as a night at the opera, the code name for what a mission brief is. Player characters known as agents are tasked with investigating supernatural and paranormal events that threaten humanity. This can involve anything from mysterious disappearances to bizarre phenomena. In addition to investigating, agents must often cover up the existence of these threats to prevent mass hysteria and to protect the secrecy of Delta Green. Agents frequently come into contact with cosmic horrors and entities that defy understanding. Their mission is to neutralize these threats, often at great personal risk. Agents must balance their official duties with their secret work for Delta Green. This includes managing their relationships and resources effectively to avoid drawing attention to their clandestine activities. Essentially, in Delta Green, many agents are leading a double life. And then, of course, there's the dealing with personal costs. The work performed takes a heavy toll on agents, affecting their mental health, relationships, and sometimes their very humanity. Players must navigate these personal costs while continuing to serve the greater good. Agents receive mission briefings, where they are given specific objectives to achieve. These missions often involve a mix of investigation, combat, and subterfuge. Investigate, determine if it poses a threat, and then eliminate the threat, and then cover your tracks. That's a common theme. Unlike some other popular RPGs, Delta Green is not a game of superheroes. The agents are subjected to the same societal rules of modern-day living, with a focus on survival and the mental toll of their missions rather than become more powerful. Combat is dangerous and often deadly. Firearms have lethality ratings. A test is performed, and if successful, the target falls to 0 hit points. Agents are encouraged to avoid direct confrontation and supernatural threats, as these encounters can result in death or insanity. The focus is on investigation, stealth, and psychological tension than on combat prowess. It's not about adventuring. Agents are motivated by duty, a sense of responsibility, or the need to protect humanity from unknowable horrors. That's to cover the "why the hell would my character want to pursue such stressful situations?" question. The tone is darker, with a focus on the cost of their actions. Rather than defeating a monster and gaining more or better, so you could defeat the next bigger thing, in Delta Green, agents face intense stress, fear, and risk losing their sanity. The game has mechanics for tracking mental stability and the impact of trauma, reflecting the heavy toll that facing the mythos takes on the characters. In some games, there's a definitive good versus evil. In Delta Green, moral ambiguity is a key element. Characters are frequently faced with difficult choices that have no clear right or wrong answers. They may have to sacrifice others, commit morally questionable acts, or betray their own principles to succeed in their missions. The game often explores the cost of fighting against overwhelming odds and the erosion of humanity in the process. Are you getting what I'm putting down? There are 5 core components to an agent: stats, derived attributes, profession, skills, and bonds. There are 6 stats in Delta Green for each player character. They are strength, dexterity, intelligence, constitution, POW or willpower, and charisma or Riz. Each stat ranges from a score of 3 to 18. Sound familiar? Two methods of coming up with your stats are rolling 4d6 and dropping the lowest, or using a point allocation system by using a total point pool of 72 to distribute across those 6. Now that you have your stat scores, you can now come up with each one of their test scores, which is the base score times 5. This is used for generic ability-related tests when there's not an applicable skill or your agent does not possess the appropriate skill. In other words, if the handler is trying to do something and there isn't an appropriate skill, the handler may say, give me a strength times 5 test. You can increase a stat by letting the handler know you are training or studying excessively. The way this works is you attempt a stat times 5 test. If you fail, you can increase the stat by 1 to a max of 18. And then you pick one bond and reduce that bond score by 1 as you neglect that bond. In other words, hey, if you're going to the gym to get buff, you're probably neglecting somebody, at least in the game terms. That doesn't mean you shouldn't go to the gym and be healthy. Just don't keep creating strife at home. Touching on your derived attributes, let's start with hit points. Your agent's hit point score is the average of your strength and constitution. It's used for damage, similar to other role-playing games. Only in Delta Green, when your agent hits 2 hit points, your agent falls unconscious. When your agent is at 0 hit points, they are dead. Willpower points equals POW minus your fortitude. At 2 willpower points, you emotionally collapse. At 0, you fall unconscious. This stems from resisting symptoms of mental illness, exhaustion, resisting persuasion, emotional burnout, but however, they can be regained with rest. This prevents agents from staying up all night without any repercussions. Sanity points. This is your POW score times 5. As you encounter the unnatural, you make a test. Failure removes points from your sanity score. At 0 points, there is 0 sanity, your agent becomes irrevocably insane and an NPC. Hand him over to the handler. Sanity can be regained via psychiatric care or overcoming the unnatural. As you take sanity damage, you can choose to project onto a bond. You may spend willpower points to reduce the loss. Speaking of bonds, these are relationships you have many times with people, but it could also be an organization. They help the agent resist mental trauma. But as this is done, it chips away at the relationship. Bond scores go down eventually, losing a bond with a score of 0. Your children can only take so much of mom or dad not showing up to any of their dance recitals or sports events before some deep resentment takes shape. So when the bond score reaches 0, remove the bond. It's gone, damaged beyond repair. The bonds that you have start to diminish to save the overall sanity of your agent. And your bond score is equal to the agent's charisma score. And then there's the breaking point, which is your starting sanity minus your POW. When the sanity reaches its breaking point number, the agent gains a disorder. Then it is reset to your current sanity minus POW. What job or career does your agent have? Are they an anthropologist, computer scientist, engineer, federal agent, special operator, or physician, maybe a scientist? There's some others, but these are some of the core ones that you can choose from. Your profession also determines the amount of bonds you have and the skills you possess. Skills. They range from 0 to 99% because it's a percentile system. A skill range of 0 to 19 makes you a dabbler, 20 to 29 is a dedicated hobbyist, 30 to 39 makes you a college minor or basic training. 40 to 59, college major or years of experience, and can be native fluent in a language. 60 to 79, there are decades of experience or graduate or doctoral degree. And then 80 to 99 is a lifetime's pursuit of multiple doctorates, leading expert in a field of study. A check in other role-playing games are referred to as tests in Delta Green. This is done when something is in doubt. Agents with 0 in a skill cannot attempt a skill. Anyone can attempt a stat times 5 test for a general test. Not falling when pushed is a dex times 5, but walking a tightrope would be an athletics check. So as long as an agent has 1% in a skill, they can attempt the test. The max skill score is 99, like I mentioned. I've heard some videos say you make a skill test to see what happens when the situation presents itself, but that's not necessarily true in Delta Green. Should the agent not be under duress or stress, but a certain level of competency is required to succeed, a simple minimum skill score may be adequate to simply do the thing. There's no roll required. So for an example, the pilot of the plane suddenly dies. You have a pilot aircraft score of 60, so you're able to take over the controls. Doubles on a successful skill test are called critical successes, while doubles on a failure is a fumble. Final details of the agent include coming up with an age, a name, a job or personal life, not to be mistaken for what we had said earlier about what your agent is or what they do. And then you'll want to come up with why does Delta Green tap you as a resource, and then why does your agent do the thing for Delta Green, your motivation. Running a game of Delta Green can be very rewarding for a game master. Because there is an emphasis on investigation, which can often rely on a trail of breadcrumbs that is evidence, it also allows participating players to be creative in their approach, which keeps the handler on their toes. Trust me. A good handler will know how much rope to give the player characters. A great handler will provide a balance, keeping it from becoming a complete railroad while still rolling with the decisions made by the players. So y'all want to go to a local bookshop? Okay. There's no bookshop in this scenario, but they don't know. Roll with it. The joys the handler will experience is when they sit by as the group discusses all the clues and comes up with their different conclusions and ultimate plans of action. The fun continues when the simplest thing happens, like an innocent bystander walks their dog at the wee hours of the night and wonders why there are 2 people sitting in their car watching a house, while another agent is standing on a limb of a tree 20 feet from the ground. What do you agents do? Playing the game presents rewarding role-playing experiences. Since the emphasis is not on combat, but more on pulling back the veil, putting the pieces of the puzzle together, and then figuring out how to discreetly and covertly end the mission, the roleplay aspect will be at the forefront of play. How does stress and witnessing things that shock your agent take shape on the agent's psyche? What happens when you're walking through a creepy scene only to have your cell phone ring and the caller ID is from a number of a long-deceased friend or relative? When you answer the phone, it's your agent's 8-year-old child. This wraps up my overview of Delta Green. Of course, I'll have links down below where you can pick up the game along with some useful resources. Grab a copy, grab some dice, and find out where the rabbit hole takes you. Thanks for watching this until the end. And remember, be a positive force in the tabletop RPG hobby, and I'll catch you on the next one. See ya.